Now I'm going to wait until someone tells me if I'm live. This meeting is being sent to YouTube. Now I'm going to wait until someone tells me if I'm live. Hello, beautifuls. Good afternoon. It is October 17th, 2024, and we are sitting underneath of an Aries full moon plus. My name is Rainey Ford, and I am coming to you from Nemeton the Mountain on behalf of, through, and with Alchemy of the Season School that's brought to you through Nemeton Wellness Collective, a branch of Nemeton. And today, this is part one of an inner cartography quest. In some circles, they might call it a challenge. I prefer to think of life as a challenge enough as it is without needing to challenge each other. So I'm inviting us on a quest together where we get to explore potentialities. Remember, everything that you hear, feel, hear is for you to experience. If you feel something is not in alignment for you, as a dear person that I follow on YouTube says, chuck it in the fuck it bucket. And yes, we talk like that here. Meaning, the goal here is to take on the things, to take into yourself for consideration, for experimentation that call you. Not because I said it, not because someone said it in a book, not because it's the latest trend or the latest fad, but because it rings your soul bells, rings your heartstrings. That's what we want to do here. So, with that in mind, let's consider a couple of things. One of the worlds that I work from, that is what happens in this time of year, is a branch of the school called inner cartography. Inside of inner cartography, we play with a number of different systems. Astrology, human design, gene keys, emotional bridges. We work with some of the more practical systems as far as like kinesiology and muscle testing, things that span that difference between energetic realms and physical realms. And so in this part of things, we're looking at coming down into a narrowed focus around how are we being influenced, right? So it's like taking our human realm here and like diving up to the stars, except in the conversation, we're also diving into our lived experience here on the planet, here in our boots, sitting in our pockets, in the chairs, or however it is that we are receiving this moment. This past year, we just kind of like sit back just for a second and take in a scope of where this conversation wants to play through. One level is from this past 3 weeks and into the next 3 weeks, which will roughly span this window of time for this full moon. This full moon's a little intense. It's a little bit like almost like an eclipse kind of a moon. I'm not going to get all into that. There's other videos that I may post down in here. Moon omens, Cleopatra, rewilding with Sabrina Lynn, Molly McCord. There's a few other ones. I want to link those into this video because they're really deeply insightful. And what I'm trying to do here is like grab from a number of different places and bring in together this lens stack of being able to dance with our mental capacity and our emotional capacity, being able to take in archetypes mentally and feel them, be able to understand mentally these large concepts of conversations that want to happen and the nuances in them mentally, like understanding how the conversation last night with our neighbor or our partner had so much to do with our conditioning inside of our own self that we hold in an unconscious way that stems from our childhood. And that's being brought out because of the energy of the weather around us. When we can mentally grasp that, we might be able to have a deeper compassion for how our emotionality is like a little kid wailing on the floor. we've got Cancer and Mars, and it's a very uncomfortable position for a very emotional feeling Cancer to be sitting in the planet of war and conflict and growth. And so its reaction is often to just feel emotional, to cry, to rail, to war, and to roar, all of those. So if any of that speaks to you, that might be some of what you've been feeling over the past 3 weeks or so as this energy has been amping up. I also want another larger chunk out here like this past year. What has this past year been like for you in the realms of change, in the realms of challenge when it comes to relationships? Your relationship to yourself, your relationship to others, your ability to be in relationship with yourself fully and well while in relationship with another. How is the balance between the two? That has been this past year's angst. Like, this is that crunch point. That's that twist point of what have we learned? Have we learned where it's excessive and deficient on both sides to the point where we find a balance in between? Because it really wants us to be able to play with both moving forward and to not be knocked off kilter so much that we become like the little kid on the floor. Not that we can't have those moments, because gosh darn it, they exist. 5-minute temper tantrums. Thank you, HG. They're a thing. They're a helpful thing to accept where we are. You know, we cannot think ourselves out of a thing we are feeling. We cannot think ourselves out of a thing we are feeling. We cannot think ourselves out of a thing we are feeling. We need to feel it first and move past the fear that the mind's going to judge it, and then be able to feel the feel and be able to understand it. That's part of where this transit side comes in, when we start to look at what some of these influences have been in our life over some of this time. Right? We've had a lot of this Libra and Aries energy this past year. It's been deeply influential, playing a role in the eclipses that happened earlier in the spring and the earlier part of January, the first 6 days of January or so, that kind of like gave an expression of what the next 6 months might roll out like, and what they might feel like. And one more breath out, and we're going to go to 16 years. We're going to go to 2008, which is when Pluto first entered Capricorn. Pluto's on its way out of Capricorn now. It's going to be fully out November 17th, 19th, somewhere in there. And we are just now moving out of, we're in that energy of moving out of, we're moving into Aquarius. So Pluto's our underworld. Pluto is the like, all right, what's coming up from the surface? What's coming up from the depths to the surface? What is it that's being unearthed? What is it that is part of our, so it's the energy of deep ancestral. It's the energy of deep past. It's the energy of what is unseen, what is unrecognized. And so when we feel, so there's the mental part of it, and now to find it in the sensorial system, right? We feel into where have we repressed our energy, our love, our connection, our sexuality, our magic, our wonder, our curiosity, our ability to lean in and ask more, please, rather than lean back and be like, oh, I don't like this. We are in such deeply, intensely catalytic times. We need more of that leaning in and being curious and going, how can I help? Rather than what can I hurt or what can I stop? In this past time span since 2008, in 2008, it would be a thing to consider for yourself of what was I doing then? What was getting started then? Or what was finishing then? What was transpiring that later became a theme, an underlying, perhaps quiet and maybe not, theme between then and now? And what about that is ready to wrap up? What about that process is ready to become something else? Just want to take a quick moment. Something here. Mm-hmm. Something for the ability. Changing something about how we're seeing this room. Staying in the moment with y'all. So we've stepped through the 3 arcs of the timelines that we're playing with this time period. This full moon speaks to that like culmination of something new out of all of that. So it's like, what wants to start new? What wants to be birthed? Aries, we're in this full moon of Aries. So it's all about where can we go next? Where are you fired up about? I'm fired up about sharing awesome tools and connecting amazing people who want to do amazing things in the world. I am passionate about being present for the shift and the change that is happening and supporting where called with the gifts I have to bring. And so part of that looks like being here with you today. Today I have like a little workshop that I want to share with you, and it's all about transits. So I watch a lot of astrology stuff and human design. I listen to a lot of people talk and do their thing because I love hearing how other people weave things. And I often think, gosh, there's so much data. This planet doing this thing and this sign doing this thing. Oh, and then there's how your chart's doing things and how your planets already are and your signs are. And let alone if you're in the middle of your own Saturn return or a half Uranus or, like, whoa, it's all the data. And so I'm a maker and I make organizational type things and orientation things. And one of the things that came out was this worksheet that I'll be sharing with you in a little bit. And it's about, so before I jump into that, I wanted to introduce you to this 2-step fold you will feel me doing throughout this time together. And it is indicative of how I flow through where I teach and where I do a number of different things. And depending on what's being asked for, I might do both or I might do one or the other. And what I'm speaking about is this dance between didactic mental understandings and sensorial, emotional feelings based perceptions. And so you'll feel me mentally talking about these like charts that have these numbers and these spots and this orientation thing and this means of that thing, and that may or may not be your thing, and that's totally okay. It might be helpful over time for you to find a way to use that information in a way that does serve you, and that might look like someone helping you with understanding your own, right? Not everybody is going to be an analyst or a person who uses it in that kind of way. That's just not how everybody works. And I will say that over time, with repeated exposure, there are elements that rub in and wear off. And there are some people who love to dive into these things. The emotional sensorial side is where you get to check in with your own nervous system, your own inner alignment, your own mind and heart space of where of these things that I am speaking of, is there medicine for you? It's a step into your own awareness and sovereignty where you get to use your sensorial system to go, where's there truth for me in this? Right? That helps me take responsibility for what I speak about, and it also helps you take responsibility for what you take in. And so when I move between those, I invite you to take a deep breath and imagine yourself moving from a mind space down into a heart space. And if it gets real big down there and there's a lot that comes through, I invite you to extend that out to your extremities and let it just feel. What does it feel like? Does it feel like opening and expansiveness? Does it feel like invitation? Does it feel like health and wellness and radiance? Or does it feel like constriction? Does it feel like meh? Does it feel like closing, stricture, deadness, right? Deadness, numbness, they may also be frozen. They may also be, the more lower states of when our nervous system is in a fight, flight, not even fight. It's in a frozen and fawn. It's down in the deepest of the polyvagal suppressed states. And so it's difficult to find safety there because nothing can feel safe. Nothing, not even a safe place can feel safe when we're in those spaces. And so it can be a little more complex and nuanced. There are so many lenses and layers and rabbit holes as we step into these places. When you see me start to pull back, it's because I'm pulling myself out of that energy pool for a moment and beginning to switch into another space. Because what I'm trying to do is reach into the places that might most usefully serve this time here together. All right, let's go ahead and dive in. Inside of the description of this event in YouTube, you should find a link to a worksheet. And in that worksheet, it's called Transits in You. The very first page, you're going to see a worksheet. I'm going to go ahead and share it on my screen here for a little bit. That out. And try a couple of new things here. And now I'm just going to show this one. And let's try that. All right. So transits in you. So you'll see on one side, so I am looking at the left-hand side of the chart at the moment. It says unconscious body vehicle up at the top. And here it talks about 4 aspects: planet, your sign, house number, and gate key. In the subsequent pages of this document, you will find a one sheet for each of those 4 things that have, in a very condensed, compact form, a deep explanation, as much as I can in that space, of what each of those mean. So when we start to play with it, know that you yourself can go through and play with what they mean. Here we're tracking the numbers, right? So like you might put your sign here, and then the sun, whatever sun your sign is in, you'd put your sign name. That aspect of things you can look later down in the list and pull what the meaning is. We're going to be lens stacking a couple of examples here, so you can kind of have a sense for what that flow might feel like. And that lineup may not be yours. You may have a component of it. And in future times when I play in this way, I would love to invite the community to share your chart, and I will weave yours. And I take the names and things out. All that's left is, two letters that indicate a thing about it, so the people who see it know it, and I know it. And here we are looking at, so we planet and sign, we're looking at astrology, and same with the house number. Those are 3 lenses of astrology. Gate key is the number sequence and the line for what's in the human design chart. So that's 1 through 64. And then the location of where it's at tells you what part of the gene key chart that particular energy would be showing up inside the gene key chart. On this side, on the right-hand side of the chart, conscious personality passenger side, that is where you have your personality side, and you also have the transit side. So our natal transit, our star transits that we have for any given moment, are based on the energy of the now. So they're often called just now charts or something of that kind of ilk. And they would have its own planet in the sign of, in the house of, with the gate key of, right? And so this is a way to track what that data is. Now let's talk a little bit about the meaning, right? So this is the kind of mental part of it. This next part is two, and it starts to step into a little bit more of the sensorial. So when we're talking about planet, now remember there's 12 planets. So 12 planets, 12 signs, 12 houses, 64 gate keys. We got 110,592 variables, and that's before we add in a bunch more that would take it well beyond, well, equivalent to the number of humans that we have, which is really quite a beautiful thing. Coming back to this lens stack, we're playing with stacking a transit, looking at what our own and the transit, right? Okay, so when we're playing with our charts, that's when we're born, and transit is the transit of the moment. We're looking at the planet of our own and the planet that's in motion. So sun to sun, Mercury to Mercury. We might also be looking at like how they're aspecting each other. That's a little bit of a step beyond at the moment. And looking at your chart versus another chart is that first step of going into the direction of seeing how they're influenced. Looking at our signs is the archetype at the helm. Right? So realm of the conversation, planet, sign, archetype at the helm, house. What's the orientation of the focus of the conversation with this archetype, and the journey that's being accepted or being looked at to be accepted. Okay, so in this purple here is kind of like a simple formula you might play with. It's this very simple. Please feel invited to play much beyond this. This is a place to begin. So like, here's an actual example down here. In the realm of love and values, Venus, we see a practical, diligent Virgo archetype at the helm, focused on values, house needs, and ambiance, it's house 2, in the journey of immaturity to expansion and superabundance, gate key 53. And so that speaks of a story and an archetype of how a being shows and expresses its love and how it values both itself and situations and moments by how it diligently tends and takes care of and values its home and its possessions and its own self-worth. And it gets to do that from deeply encountering immaturity and an inability to understand things, and a nervous system that throws hissy fits because it's cancer related, cancer the sign, and has this like, it cares so much that it can fall apart when things don't go the way that it knows how to have things go. And that's how it shows love. And taking in those lens stacks of what those different pieces and parts might mean on a sensorial level. We can lean into understanding the mental side and then feel the sensorial side of, oh, okay, that's a lot different than calling someone a crybaby. That's a lot different than saying, I'm too emotional, or I love in a this kind of way. No, it's a this is a way that I love. And so we get to look at things from a place of excitement and enthusiasm, and how can we bring our bigness? How can we bring our most vulnerable side, our most simple, our most childlike? How can we bring all of the things to play in the room together at the same time? So that deeper conversation of all those planets and signs and things playing all together in the room at the same time, inside of our psyche, inside of our emotionality, inside of our friend groups, inside of our schools, inside of the streets of our local townships and cities and villages, and where we travel and where we learn. All these different places and where we may go show up inside of things like the houses, and a little bit to some degree the planets. let's go on a little bit more. So I'm going to come back to this chart in a minute. This is the just now chart of today. I want to skim through here. I just want to show you. So we have planet keynotes, right? We talked about planets, signs, houses, and gate keys, right? So here's planets. Here's the signs. Here's the gate key, the houses, and then here's the gate keys. And so we have the ability to like go from one to the other and grab this one and this one and this one and this one, and then put it into that formula and play with how it feels in our brain and how it lands on our hearts. And there's a couple examples here. I'm going to play through here in a moment. So just to give you a sense of that scope of being, yeah. So let's pause right here. Okay, so these are the just now charts of where we are here in October 17th. I pulled these earlier this morning. The full moon was about at 4:30, and I pulled these about 6 o'clock my time. So right now, we got the human design chart. We've got a throat definition, throat to ajna definition, or rather ajna to throat. And so we have this energy trying to come through, this far seeing from the heart, this language of light and love, this ability to express from that ajna awareness, that lens stacking of system building and how we can plug in a it's a different kind of sensorial. It has more of a mental sensorial aspect to it, and not so much like a thinking brain, the thing that asks questions and wonders and all of those things, but more the thing that has the answers or has the structure or says, ah, that makes sense because of blah, blah, blah. Right. And in this part down here, we see the astrology chart of the present moment. And so what I'm looking at here, this grand cross that I have highlighted down here in full moon in Aries, is the blue that you see on the screen here. I'm actually going to pull out my annotation tool and draw on the screen a little bit here. Let me pull, oops, second, make things a little bigger. Do it. Let's go to here. Awesome. Ooh. Here we go. Okay. Ah! Let's move this guy over here. And let's grab this tool here. Okay. The draw tool. Yes, there we go. Okay. So I'm just going to draw it in real big here. We're looking at these two parts, not that at the moment. And we're looking at this other blue line that comes from, this is Pluto, and this comes up through Mars. Okay, so that's our grand trine, is that blue, the blue cross that you see in the center there. I'm a very visual person. I really like being able to see things visually and hear them at the same time. So that's part of why I offer it in this modality. I'm seeking to support the neurospiciness that we all may have around different modalities and learning. So we're sitting here on an axis of Aries and Libra. And we're also sitting on this like cuspy-ish place of Cancer and Capricorn. Whew. Aries and Libra are so very different. Aries is so very self. It's the first of the zodiac. It's the youngest child that says, I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to do it amazingly well. And it charges off and is very fiery. And it's not necessarily a consideration of a lot of layers and pieces and nuances. When it tries, it mostly just like stops and waits. So if you've got Aries in your chart, be aware that may be a place where there's some potential density around absorbing where others are at, i.e. in a potential inability to do that. So in that space, there may be an inability. It doesn't mean in other places you might not have deep connectability. When we can find the places in ourselves that are like, no, I'm not doing this thing. And we can find this other side where it's like, oh, I want to do that thing. When we can find those dichotomous ways of being, we have such a deep ability to be able to span multiple kinds of nuances. In this case, we have a wonderful example in front of us. Aries and Libra. Aries is all about the self and Libra is all about the other. Where in your world have you had a tussle between yourself and other? Where has it been all about the other and there's been a lot of fingers out and it feels like everything abandoned you or it feels like everything's out there? I'm not saying in any way that how you're feeling about that is wrong. I'm coming from the perspective and sharing that the fingers don't help us get out of that situation. And so where we can find it, we can go, there's the finger I've been pointing. If we can't put it away yet, maybe we can consider what's trying to hold it out. Is it a fear? Is it easier to point a finger than embrace or move through a fear that we have? That might be where we're cowardly. It's okay too. You get to be that scared lion and still want to do better. Yeah. So wherever we can accept ourselves in the places that we are the places that we can start to become stronger in and more accepting in over time. And in the present moment of being able to see perhaps, oh gosh, I may have already have moved and grown through this and not have been in awareness of it because of being in it so deeply. When we're in an experience so deeply, we are often doing what it takes to survive. And in doing what it takes to survive, we don't always have the capacity to be with the fullness of the moment and what's being offered for understanding. And over time, we may get more and more layers than we ever thought possible. Let's talk about the other axes of this cross that we talked about. It's come through a few times, maybe in more of the sensorial of things. So Cancer, Capricorn. Oh gosh. Cancer, Capricorn. Cancer is very emotional. It's very nurturer. It's very caring. It's very motherly, like motherly, potential smotherly, right? Capricorn is very stern. It's very to the point. It's the goat on the side of the mountain. It's very precise. It's getting where it's going, right? It's kind of the opposite of Cancer. That the whole point of looking at things in opposition. A grand trine is a great way of being able to step into playing with what's opposite of each other, right? When we looked at earlier what the planets, the signs were, right? Because right now we're playing with signs. That's what's around the outside. We're playing with the signs, and yes, the planets are what's playing on the inner ring on the inside. For some, this may be old hat knowledge. For others, it's like, oh, thank you for the orientation. Sometimes I can confuse the two. I think it's a common thing for many to confuse signs and planets, especially when you're playing with lots of variables and data. The mind can go, hold on, which realm are we in? In this realm of Cancer and Capricorn, Mars is in Cancer and Pluto is in Capricorn. And so Mars is unhappy in Cancer. It has this, I likened it earlier to a chef on the battlefield. A chef on the battlefield, like a chef who just really likes to make really yummy sweets and treats and good wholesome food and loves to sing and chop things up and is a whiz in the kitchen, and then chemistry and the creation of a thing and the presentation and the serving, and then it's stuck in the battlefield and it's like, what good am I here? How do I even have anything of service to offer? How do I have something of service to offer in this mess? Might potentially be a deep question that has been surfacing during this time where Mars has been moving through some of this intense energy, especially with Pluto being on the other end in Capricorn. So it's kind of like our underworld is bringing up all of the kind of crunchy bits for us to see now through this lens of Cancer and Mars. And so if you're playing in your world, so the whole goal of this is to be able to play with these markers through what your chart and what your world is, which is why I put all the information down here at the bottom. I'll go ahead and clear my screen, and that's here. All those. So down here, the sun is in gate 32 in Libra, which is in the first house, right? So let's orient that piece real quick. I realize I just jumbled a bunch of things that for some people might not make sense. So the sun in Libra, which is here. So first house, right? The sun is in the first house, which is right behind that one, right? Or that blue line right there. And this 32 is, whoops, I need to move my chart, but that means my drawing is going to move. Reconfiguring. This. I have to come out of this zoom a little bit. Okay. We have, so sun is there, and Libra is here. 32 is right here. First house, that sun is sitting right here. The first house. And the moon, so the moon is directly opposite, which does not always happen, especially in this alignment. The moon, we go over here to the moon in the gene keys, and that's 42, which is there. So we got our moon and our 42, and Chiron is right next to it. It's literally 1 degree away, so we're taking both. And Chiron isn't here. It's the last number that actually showed up in an ephemeris that I use that's human design related. So it doesn't actually show up in this chart. And it's 42 also. So that is the energy of completions. So the moon's in this energy of completions, Chiron's in this energy of completion, and Aries is sitting inside of the 6th house. So we have Aries, and we're this whole shit and caboodle, all of this. Whoops, I actually had that wrong. It's in the 7th house. 7th house, not 6th. So 7th here, not 6th. And so we're playing in this deep connectability around what is it around myself and other. Where can I make room for both in a deeper way than I've ever had it? Where am I finished with something? And where is it all about preserving something to move forward? Gate 32 is about preservation. Line 5, which is the one next to the little 32, that's all about taking the lead on something, stepping deeper into being the thing, right? It also means withdrawing so we learn what is important to preserve. It also means stepping forward. So this stepping forward and knowing what to preserve in relationship, we're in Libra, first house, which is about the self, your appearance. So this is like, how does the relationship come off? How does the relationship look? How does the relationship have how is its intrinsic presentation to yourself, to each other? Is it what you want it to look like? And the moon and Chiron, our emotions, and the wounded healer aspect is asking us to finish something. It's that energy of asking for completion for something new to start. And so it's this rolling. And so this is just the transit information. So what I have just shared with you is what you would put into, I'm gonna, okay, that one, clear. There we go. So that is the information that would go here into the gray. And I would put it in for the sun, for the moon, for Mars, and for uh, Pluto, and for Chiron. And so you put that information right here in each of those lines. You don't this worksheet you could print out as many times as you want. In fact, you could take it and add your information to it, make photocopies so you have transits you could apply to your own, right? So you could fill out yours once. You use your human design chart to fill this out with, and your astrology chart. So it takes you a little bit, like, where's your sign? You got to find your sign, your sun sign. So sun, I put the signs here so you could easily find them in your charts. So you look for this symbol over here for the sun sign. You look for this circle with a cross through it for the earth. You know, moon is pretty simple. North node and south node, well, they point in the direction of north and south. You know, Mercury's got the little crown on its head. Venus is the one with the cross that looks like a pair of boobs and just a, you know, circle on top. And Mars has the circle on the bottom and an arrow up, kind of like a, you know, boy's parts. Jupiter looks like a fancy number 4, or like a fancy swirly. Jupiter's all about luck and blessings and laws and a number of things. Saturn is the cross and the H, and you know, the kind of like the a sternness to it. Uranus looks a little bit like a satellite ship. Neptune has the trident of 3, and then Pluto is like holding this. It's a crown that holds what I see as a pearl. That's the one that's like the pearl of the underworld. It's quite a potent space. And then Chiron is the K with the key, or the key that has a K in it. And so looking for those symbols inside of your chart and learning what those look like can help make that process a lot smoother for those of you who are interested in at least being able to mentally understand your internal system numbers. And remember, not everybody is, and that's all totally okay. This particular kind of session is for those who really love this, who look at this worksheet and they're like, oh my goodness, yes, I put that person's name and the date, and I can just fill in the thing and I can color it in. Oh, and down here, this is a color coding thing. So when I'm drawing it in here, I'm actually coloring this in, like the, you know, activation sequence, heart path, collaboration. You know, if you know the gene key side of things and you know how to do that up here, I might color code that eventually for folks. And then unconscious and unconscious gates, that's a color coding down here to be able to draw this in. And then you could pick a whole nother color if you wanted to for like transits to be able to really feel. I invite you to feel into these centers like they are part of your world. You know, your voice and how you speak, that's that throat. Your mind and how it sorts data is your ajna. The mind and how it asks questions is your head. Your direction and love and how what you seek in the world and how you hold your own internal lighthouse is your G center. How you make promises and how you show up and how you prove or allow yourself to be in this world is the will center. The sacral center is your innate sexuality, your innate creativity, your innate force and drive for life. It's constant or its unconstant. Right hand triangle is your solar plexus. Solar plexus is the emotional center. It's an authority center. It's up and down. It's waves. It is a sensorial feeling. It is a nervousness. It is all the feelings that one could feel. It is dishonor. It is graciousness. It is humanity. It is compassion. It is conflict. It is diplomacy. It is desire. It is rapture. It is radiance. It's victimization. It's freedom. It's emotional reaction. And it's revolution. It's all of those things wrapped up in one. Left side triangles, all about how we survive. It's our depths. It's our harmony. It is our corruption. It is our judgments. It is our integrities. It is our preservations. It is our fighter. It is our surrender. It is many things that give us information about our survival and potentially some of those around us. It speaks once. So if it's going off again and again and again and again and again, it might be your mind. It's not a defined spleen. Defined spleen is that quiet little voice. You got spleen defined. Listen for the quiet voice. Shh. It's inside your cells. It's inside you. The hairs on your body. It's inside of a knowing that runs through your beingness. And last but not least is that root center, one of the powerful pressure centers in our being. It is all about this force and this drive to move energy through the whole rest of the system. It says, get up and go, shake it off. Come on. We got this. We can push past limitations. We can start something new. We can grow out of immaturity. We can move out of oversensitivity. We can step up into fighting for a purpose, not fighting for no reason. It says, come on. And it comes in pulses. It's not always on. And when it comes on like a boom, and it gets this really large energy, and then it comes off and it fades away. And so look for that energy movement in your own being. And then as you're playing with these data, you get this sensorial feeling. Ah, right. I'm consistent and defined in these places. Let me try that on. Like a coat. Does this fit? Does this help me understand myself better? If it doesn't, take it off. No one's trying to tell you who you are. No one's trying to tell you who you are. That's not what we're here to do. If you try that coat on and you go, all right, let me see what this feels like. Some of us are not born with an innate sense of who we are. Some of us are. Some of us develop it over time. Some of us are battle born. We learn it at the point of a sword. We learn at the point of trauma. We learn at the point of conflict. We learn at the point of pain. Sometimes we've learned it at the point of joy. We've had a beautiful experience or a beautiful moment in our upbringing or in our life that has allowed us to be able to really rise deeper and in a more expansive way. Okay. So I would like to take you through an experiment of walking through an example. And I need to stop my share real quick. And I'm going to make two happen on my screen and see if that can give us the ability to see this in a multi-lectic way. Love to invite all of you, if you would like to take the next 30 seconds or so, we've got 40 minutes left. Take a quick break, go pee, go get some water. I might grab some water myself. Taking good care of our body in this time while we're exercising that mental and that emotional pull, release, right? This is like a form of training. It's like a form of discipline to be this in tune with how one's body and being is. It's a lot of intensity. So take good care of yourself. Um, invite the quick break, and I'll be back. We'll be back in just a moment. Pulling these things and lining them up. Okay. There we go. Oh. Mm. Okay. Starting to come back to share my screen again. Like this. All right. So I wanted to just, before I start to weave another layer, I can't pull three of them up at the same time. So two is the most I can do at the moment. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to show you where you're understanding this information from. Okay. So when I come down here and I look for Sun 32 in Libra, first house, I come down here and I go, the sun right here. I shine what I put into the world. Um, how I am being in the world, my how I am self-determining myself. Right now we're sitting in Aries, right? So I'm sorry, Sun is in Libra. So we're sitting in the realm of how I see myself is how I see relationship, right? And so it's like in order to see ourselves, we see ourselves through the lens of relationship at the moment. So we're looking at inside the first house, right? So let's go down to I'm gonna jump right down real quick. So Sun 32. You can use these in whatever order you would like. Um, Sun 32. So duration, continuity, failure to preservation, splenic energy. So we're talking about that spleen. We're talking about that survival, that ability, that intuition, the other kind of an authority. So we have an authority that's speaking splenic intuition around relationships. This is a relationship around relationships with yourself because we're in the first house, right? So let's go to first house. First house, appearance, outward personality, right? We're looking at how I am, how I act, awareness of self. And it's awareness of self with the Libra, with the pairing of, right? So let's go look at Libra. Libra, diplomatic and urban, romantic and charming, easygoing and sociable, idealistic and peaceable, indecisive and changeable, gullible and easily influenced, flirtatious and self-indulgent, right? So we get these like opposite end perspectives from all sorts of directions, all over, until we start to define the parameter of what it looks like for ourselves. So while we are sitting inside of this Aries full moon energy, it is pointing. So the moon energy, the full moon is illuminating the other side of things, right? The sun's illuminating the moon and the moon's illuminating the sun in this moment because they're literally sitting on opposite sides of each other, except for the fact that in that illumination, they're also not. That's why it's kind of part of an ecliptic energy because they're so far from each other. They're not able to have this flow and this play. So it is that kind of like short circuit of energy. And so what you're feeling right now in these times, be aware of its intensity and know that its information is liable to show itself over the next few weeks as opposed to right now. Be with yourself and with that process. Libra's kind of waffly, right? And so it's wanting to be, you know, be at peace with the flow and the flux of what is happening in being. That is a way to apply that. Spoke about that one. The sign and the houses and the 32. Okay, so that's how you kind of like weave between them. And then you can also probably just like on the back side of something like this, jot them down like in a row or in a type of maybe I'll make a flow for them where it can be filled out all the way across. Anyway, let's run an example. So that was the just now chart. Let's go down here. We'll set this side to be the example and we'll run it to the other side. I'm going to run this example. Okay. So we have, so we're looking at, oh goodness, I need to just write down with my brain piece. This is why I built the transit tracker. Actually, I have one in front of me. Okay, never mind. I can do it this way. So, pardon the fast, rapid scrolling as I set this up, and then that one won't move. Okay, so this is the three-way. I'm not going to focus on the gene key chart because the gene key chart is part of the human design chart, right? It has parts and components that are what make it up. There's 11 gate keys down here in this part of the human design chart, where up here there's 22 variables. So we're looking at a fuller version, and we can look at them in relation over here because we've got the planets on the side. So on this side, it's just the first initial or two for the planets, and then there's the symbols on this side. And so we're going to mostly be working with these two charts. So, and we're looking at the, I still need to track the transit energy into this. Rapid scrolling. Okay, so transit, sun, 32, and first house, and we have it in Libra. And then we have moon, 42, and then Chiron is 42, and then the 42, and then Aries, moon and Chiron are both in Aries. So I'm going to put Aries on one and then put Aries on the other. And that's in the seventh house, right? It got changed earlier. So 7 in that one and 7 in this one. And then I'm going to look at Cancer. Yep. Mars in Cancer in the 10th. And that's gate 62. And then we need Pluto, which is Capricorn in the 4th house, gate 60. Okay. I see how I could have reordered that a little differently. Always improvements in beautiful ways. Okay. So now I'm going to look for where is the, because we got Libra and the sun. So I'm going to start with the sun. Where is Libra in the chart that's in front of us here? Let me get this out of here. We're looking at the sun, right? So we got the shine, which you put into the world, the self-determination. Where's this chart's sun? This chart's sun is over here in Aries in the 7th house. And right now, the just now chart, or the chart for today is Libra in the 1st house. And so it's kind of like in opposition. This chart's Aries is in the house. Itself is in the house of other. Funny enough. Aries is the ruler of house 1. And so it's kind of like a little out of its element. If we were to scroll down here and look at the houses, we'll see that 7, I don't have Aries as a detriment in there. I do have Mars as the detriment, and Mars and Aries is what is the rulership over here in the house 1. And so in this 7th house, this is the house of marriage and partnerships and one-on-one relatings. And so how one relates to themselves is how one relates through relationship, is what this is what implying, right? This sun and the self, it is that deep relationship with the other. And we're looking at it through gate 51. And gate 51 lives down here in the will center, connected to the G center, which is undefined. So we've got this defined will with this sun 51 and this Aries in the 7th house. And so we have this synergy 51. So let's go over to 51. 51 is the arousing, the shock. So this is agitation to initiative. So this is that process of waking up, basically. So waking up to self in relationship over and over again. It's the gate of shock. Oh no, shocked in self, shocked about others, shocked about the situation, right? And so it's rolling through that awakening process with the Aries energy. Aries is not uncomfortable in the sun. Aries, they're both fire signs. Sun is fiery, Aries is fiery. So they're both fiery about the other because we're in the seventh house, and it's about the awakening and the shocking. We're looking at the will center, which is also another kind of fiery blast off of energy, right? That's the ego. That is our ego. The will center is called the ego center. Tomorrow we'll actually be talking about the ego center and the 8 gates that come off of that and the astrology that's associated with those. And so that's where the sun aspect exists inside of this chart. And so now we move on to the moon. Where's the moon? As we look at here, I see the moon up here in Gemini. And we've got the moon in the transit in Aries, right? So we've got Aries and Gemini. And so that's this whoops. No, yeah, Aries and Gemini. Um, the transit is in Aries. I'm sorry, I'm not pointing here. The transit's in Aries. The transit's in Aries in the seventh house. And the moon in this case is in the ninth house. Um, ninth house. So ninth house, we come over to here and we look at higher education, philosophy, publishing, religion, social functions, travel, law, right? We're looking at how we move through life in the forms of very external expressions, how we encounter things in the external outside world. You know, we're looking at interpersonal presentations. Each of these quadrants inside these houses have kind of a different theme to them about how they're associated. This house system is a really interesting process. I invite deeper study if you haven't yet. It has a lot of things that make a kind of sense in how it flows, right? This is the open door. You come in through house 1 and you go through 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way through 12, right? This is your ascendant line. That's at ASC there in that little spot, and DEC is descendant. Right, so that your your horizon when you were born would have been here, and then your planetary layout of where the planets exist inside of those pie slices is where they would have been in that arrangement in the sky when you were born. Right, so that's when we talk about your transit or your birthday, your birth information. We're looking at what was the weather like when you were born, right? So like, I'm gonna come out just for a quick second. Imagine that you were born on a dark and stormy night. You were born when the winds were high and howling in the skies, and there was much unrest in the city. And your mom, or your mom and your dad, or your mom and someone else tarried through the long storm, the night, to bring you into the world. That energy that was happening that night that influenced your mom, that was the ambiance that she experienced while she was delivering you, absolutely played a role on her nervous system, which affected you when you were born. Yeah? That thing makes sense? So in this case, we're talking about the storm. We're talking about the weather of the storm. We're talking about the atmosphere outside. We're talking about the nuances of the planetary movements around that create the orbits, that help to create and hold the atmosphere, that help to hold and establish what that container of weather looks like in which a storm can happen. So we're looking at it from the other side versus looking at it from this side. Some would say we're looking at it through divination means. And I would say I'm looking at the barometric pressure of the stick right before it rains. And some might call that witchcraft, and some might call that practical science. So, however you make sense of it in your world, I invite that there are influences that we may not always understand. And that to me feels pretty simple. Like, We can't go wrong in going, I may not know it all. In fact, it feels like a rather humble way to begin. So, okay, that was that one. Let's go back. All right, we want the double screen. Yep, wonderful. There we go. And we're back. And now we're looking at where is the Mars in this chart, right? So let's move into that one. Mars over here in the astrology chart first is right up here in Taurus. So Mars in Taurus. Mars in Taurus and Mars on this side. Remember, because this natal side of things is only this side of the human design. It's not this side. The side over here is your born side or your conceived side, the estimated conception, the estimated spirit descension into your being, and the idea of the idea. Let me start that sentence over. This side is the invitation to feeling into how your body processes life. That'd be probably the easiest way that I would put to how to make sense of this data. Making sense of the difference between your design, your body, the vehicle that you're driving through life inside of versus the personality, the passenger, the conscious. Have you ever discovered places where you can consciously be and then places where you can unconsciously be? So, for example, a common theme out in the social media world is like narcissist that and narcissist this. Did you know that you can be consciously a narcissist and you can unconsciously be narcissistic? Did you know that you can have those things in there because they are part of your wiring? They can also be part of your trauma. They can also be part of your training, your conditioning. Right? These are all deep nuances to where and what we get to find an understanding for how we have become. And ultimately, where do we want to go? Where do we want to go from here? We want to do something amazing with this. Where can we make use of this Mars in Taurus? Mars in Taurus, that is gate 8. Mars and Taurus, gate 8. So we're looking at the holding it together, holding together, contributions, mediocrity to style, right? So it's about how we're contributing and how we're contributing in a way that feels good to us, feels good to the other. It's this deep camaraderie that moves back and forth. And it comes through that throat energy, right? So it's about how we speak and how we share and how we be with the other, except that that talking and that be withing is currently sitting inside of Mars, and it's not currently, it's part of this person's chart, and it's inside of Taurus. And so Taurus, when we're looking at that energy of Taurus, we're looking at that energy that comes with the reliability, the consistency, the warm-heartedness. We also get to just have some deep examinations of where it's greedy, of where it's self-indulgent, where it's resentful, and where it goes, no, I've made up my mind. I'm not changing my mind, where it's inflexible. So when we get to look at those nuances, we get to see what's that lens step look like. Wow. All right, so that was Mars. And then the last bits were Pluto and Chiron. 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 Chiron's over in oh, maybe it's not in this chart. I don't know. I'll have to come back around to that one. Pluto. Pluto in Capricorn. Is it the transit? And then Pluto here is it's Pluto. Pluto's in Virgo. Mm, Pluto, Virgo, and gate 6. Pluto, spiritual rebirth, endings, beginnings, the underworld. Find the truth between light and darkness. Generational challenges need to be overcome in a unified way. Every 250 years is what it takes to circle around the whole thing. It's like every 20 years per sign, or every 18 years, 16 years. That's why we look back to 2008 earlier. Right, so now we're going into 6. I wanted to show you where 6 was. Show you what 6 is. 6 is conflict and friction, conflict and diplomacy, solar plexus. And so we're looking at the emotionality side of things. We're looking at that emotional authority that has an intuition around what needs to move next. So we're sitting inside of Pluto, which is a generational type of experience, type of exposure. Right? So there's this deep, 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 how do we connect through with that Virgo side of things that is all about nuance and precision and compassion through attention to detail that is trying to surface. And that also, what about the attention to a detail needs to change? Does there need to be a deeper attention to detail in a different kind of way, in a same way that you're in a different kind of perspective? And that's kind of what this transit is inviting, is dancing with what is it that's trying to wrap up, right? What is it that's trying to switch and move over? Because this person that was born with that Pluto and Virgo is encountering this ending of this transit with the Pluto and the transit in Capricorn. And so there's something about this person's Virgo nature that is also coming to an end while the Capricorn nature is also moving on. And that influence between the Capricornian collective weather onto the Virgo, virgin, young, naive kind of energy that's sitting in the underworld, right? So it's a very soft feminine that's in the underworld that is that Virgo. And it's that Virgo that's the gate 6. So gate 6 is also the gate of conflict. It's the gate of friction. It's also on the other, like the channel end on the other side is the gate of sexuality. And so this 6 is the gate of conflict that like ramps things up. It's like trying, it creates a friction in order to move through. What kind of friction is a productive friction is kind of what this transit's asking this particular influence on this chart. And so being able to boil down the influences allows us to be able to feel into who's me, what am I, and what's trying to change me. And as I'm changing, what is it that I'm stepping into and what is it that I may be leaving behind? Wow. Yeah. All right. Well, we made it through one of them. I'm looking at the time and it's about 15 after, and I want to leave time for some shares or for some questions if there are any. I'm going to just check in with the team real quick. I have not pulled open the YouTube live itself. So are there any questions, guys, that I might be wanting to tune into? Do you all have any questions? Yeah, I feel welcome to pop them into the chat if you do. If nothing pops up in that world, then I will. Let's see where we want to go next. I'd like to give you the opportunity to feel some more. This is such a deep feeling time. And I feel like so much of us tend to not feel our feels. We are not versed in feeling our feels. We need to feel our feels to be able to metamorph like this dragonfly. When we don't feel our feels, we don't know ourselves. When we don't feel our feels, we can't get to know another. We don't, and more importantly, we don't let another get to know us. And then if we get mad that we don't have friends or we don't have whatever, it's like the more we feel, the deeper it helps us to come into compassion. I'd like to invite you to feel into a couple of archetypes. That's what feels good to do. Let's do that. I would like to weave with you. I'm going to pull up the IC matrix. And we're going to weave where this full moon is dancing right now. Maybe where the moon and where Chiron is. Moon and Chiron is direct. It's like, what's the influence and where's the impact? Mars is like, what's the battleground, battlefield? The houses is like where it's taking place in your life, right? So if it's taking place inside of your relationships, whether that's your longing for relationships or whether that's being upset at the relationships that you have, maybe you also have deep contentment with the relationships that you have. And if so, I'm so happy for you. It's a wonderful thing. Please bask in it, love in it, amplify it into the collective, because those of us who don't feel it, that gives us the ability to be able to tap into it for those of us that do have it, right? Having it and not having it is two sides of the same coin. Relationship is all about relating with something that's not you. So it's isness and notness dancing in the same space. And that's really what it's bringing to the forefront in this process. All right, so the transit for the moon, Aries, gate 42. All right, let's go over to gate 42. 42, the gate of increase. All right, I'm going to share my screen for one last time. We'll have just enough time. So I invite you to sit on your pockets. I invite you to take a deep breath. I invite you to put your feet square on the floor. Sit in a rolly chair, drop it down a little so you can drop your heels right on the floor and get all your heels and toes in contact. This is Aries energy, so it's a little sparky. It's a little fiery, right? This 42, we're going to feel into the archetype of the nomad. We're going to feel into, I would like to invite us to feel into the energy that is associated around the art of living and dying and of letting go. This is the energy of the nomad. It's the energy of the man without a country, a woman without a home, the they without a cave. It is the deep analysis and the looking inward around what it is that's involved with our expectations and how we wait for life at the expectation station, expecting that life will go our way. This is the initiatory energy of the mind. This is expectation energy that lives in the mind, that moves from inside of that sensorial world that is the thought patterns of how we weave worlds with our imagination. This is how we grow and how we evolve, how we mature. This is about how we finish things and how we increase, how we grow a thing. It's about the pressure to complete, the flourishing that can happen when we lean into that deep sacral energy, that creative force to increase, to drive. Recognizing this generative force, this generating energy that simply needs a to go off and do its thing. And it gets up, that shuts it down and says, not today, not right now. This is collective abstract. This is all about sharing. So this is an increase that is aimed towards sharing and reaching out with others. Where is it in your world where is the energy of that you are done, you are so done with things that you are done with things? Right? We're sitting here at the end of a full moon, a completion cycle, talking about finishing things, while in Aries, a startup energy, a firing energy. This is an energy that's based in a dilemma of disappointment and being a victim of one's own expectations. Being inside of that place of wanting things to go a particular kind of way and feeling flummoxed when they are nowhere near, and leaving you either grasping, gasping, oh no, things have changed. It's not the way I thought it was going to be. Oh no, how am I going to pick up the pieces? Well, I thought this is the way it was going to go. I don't know. I thought this job was coming, or I thought this relationship was going to work out. I thought this, I had all these plans, but they were straws in thin air. Or the reactive side, the flaky side, oh, whatever. Not really going to commit to it, not really going to show up for it. I'm expecting that life is going to go my way, so I'm not even going to really put much effort in it. I'm not really going to try. I don't really like that word either. Not going to put much effort in. When we can move past that affirmation of I'm expecting the life is going my way, I'd love to just drop a little tiny seed for your consideration. Comes in the form of a question. Who put it into your head that life was meant to go your way? Life was meant to go any of our ways. The life is even thinking of us. Having that kind of arrogance, perhaps, is part of what keeps us small. It keeps us from reaching detachment, being the reader and the writer. Imagine being a journalist and the person reading the journal entry, reading the article. So that means imagining yourself being wherever that journalist is, to see the thing happening, to journal about it, or being on the interviews, going and seeing, being a part of the thing, even if it's on its edge, in order to write about it, and then being the one who reads it, who's interpreting it from not ever having been there. Now imagine any one of the crazy ass scenarios, painful scenarios that are happening in this world around us right now. Imagine yourself being a journalist on the edge of the Helene aftermath, what's happening over across the seas, Palestine. Imagine being in these different places in these cities. Imagine being in the homes of transgender, of Black, of other people of color, of people who have been harassed, their rights pulled, their rights challenged. Whoever said life was fair? It's so not. When we can imagine ourselves being the reader and the writer at the same time, there is this detachment that I can feel inside of my being that invites us to be able to hold one and hold the other. So that's, to do that requires, feels in my sensorial system like it needs a deep honoring of the sacred, a deep honor of the pain and the massiveness of what is being felt and experienced, while this deep understanding of its place inside the lineage of multiple lives, and holding it with a reverence and with an honor. Some of us might be being with family members who are getting older, who might be with people who are traveling or who are not with us, or people who have already passed on. Being able to be in that place of detachment is not about not feeling. It's about being able to even experience disappointment, even being able to enjoy experiencing disappointment. Doesn't mean that you enjoy someone passing or you enjoy these horrible things that are happening. It means being able to find a value inside of the experience that is happening. This brings us to the Sadi of celebration, the punchline, laughing at the joke of all of creation. And so when we can come full circle from being at the expectation station and being in all those places, full circle to this celebratory. Now, please understand this essence energy is a thing that generally drops into our being for a time and that we work throughout the whole of our lifetime to be inside of, right? Trying to be inside of celebration 24/7 is not a thing that we can do sitting inside of these human skin suits. We can have moments where it allows an even deeper widening for us to have the kind of a detachment that allows us to even experience delight or enjoyment at disappointment, because we go, okay, guess that thing wasn't for me. All right, thanks, universe. You've taken that off my plate. I no longer need to worry about that. When we can laugh at life's jokes in those ways, it's speaking about that kind of levity. It's speaking about that kind of levity in life and death situations. We're talking about the codon ring of life and death. All right, this is that sacral plexus, being able to be in that physiology of one's own body in that way. Yeah, sodalite, parrot, llama, and clam. That's a conversation for another day. All right. Now, back into sharing with y'all here. Wow. It has been lovely sharing and being with you this afternoon. I look forward to sharing tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be about talking about the Will Center. I also I invite you to come check out our Alchemy of the Season School. We'll put the links down in the description. And those are, we've got several different offerings inside the school this year. We've got membership. Membership's going to start with Roots Pathway, Roots membership. And so I'll get into that a little bit later. I'm probably going to do another live video around all of that because I want to wrap up on time this evening. I invite you to come check out membership. Membership is where we do a lot of this applied inner cartography, like what we were just talking about here. This is where we do this in small groups and we talk about it and feel into it, and it gets to be an applied experience, and other kinds of systems as well. We'll be working with Ronnie Jean, we'll be working with Becky, we'll be working with Abundance, we'll be working with multi-doxes and alignment, as well as things like human design and gene keys. That's all that membership side, is the delving and the application of it into our world. And that has weekly sessions. If you want to take it that much, you can buy different levels of the membership where it's only 1 or 2 times a month, or it's 4 times a month. They'll give you discounts on live classes and TEOP side of things. So live classes is where I'll teach a run of just human design, and so that would be 6 to 9 weeks of human design, or Gene Keys activation sequence, which is like 4 sessions. And so there's these chunks of time where there's whole classes that will be offered. And then TEOP is being able to take those once live classes, be able to take them at your own pace. Got an archive of different videos and things from all the different classes. So there's actually a lot of hours of being able to listen to different ways and flows. And that inner cartography matrix that you saw there, and the multi-map, which is actually at the end of the document that's listed, those two work together in order to create a flow for deeper, more quick access understanding of the matrix. The matrix is already in its next phase of expansion. So yeah, we look forward to seeing you, whether that's because you want to come join Alchemy Season School, or whether you want to join one of the Facebook groups. And we look forward to hearing questions that you might have. The Inner Cartography group on Facebook is a great place to post your chart and ask questions and other such things. If you haven't filled out the questions, though, make sure you do. We try to keep a tight ship over there so that we have a safe space to dive into some deep things. All right, beautifuls. Lots of love. Until soon.